Alan was sitting on a northbound train, writing a letter to Lydia telling her that he had failed the exam. He guessed she must have already heard the news. Just a day ago, the professor had informed Alan that he had failed. This was something even the professor hadn't expected. He hadn't thought either the theoretical or practical exams would trip Alan up. Alan himself didn't know what had gone wrong, but the pressing issue now was that he no longer had enough money to return home. The professor told him that sending money back home was admirable, but he should also think about himself. He knew of a job opening. An old friend of his was looking for a tutor for his daughter, just until spring, but the pay was generous. He asked Alan if he wanted to take the position. Before Alan could say what he'd decided, the professor immediately called his friend and said he'd found the perfect tutor for his daughter, leaving Alan no chance to refuse. The professor explained that Alan's student would be the daughter of Duke Howard, one of the 4 Grand Dukes. Her name was Tina, and she wished to enroll at the Royal Academy this spring. Alan realized that becoming the tutor for a duke's daughter was a huge challenge. The professor had even bought him the train ticket, making it clear he had never intended to give Alan an option to decline. Alan sat on the train, thinking about the fact that the duke's daughter couldn't use magic. This would be a big challenge for him. He stepped off the train and was greeted by Duke Howard's head butler, named Graham. Graham also introduced Ellie, a maid in training. They would now travel together to the duke's estate, but the carriage only had 2 seats, so Graham told Ellie to sit on Alan's lap, making her blush. Alan thought the 3 of them could just squeeze into 1 seat, but Ellie said she didn't mind. In the carriage, Alan kept noticing Ellie's hair ribbon. Graham commented that with snow falling this heavily, most people would just stay indoors until spring. Alan thought Ellie must be freezing dressed like that. He draped his scarf around her shoulders. He asked Graham if he minded him warming up the carriage a bit with magic. Graham, of course, agreed, and Alan immediately cast a spell to heat the inside of the carriage. Ellie was amazed at how easily Alan cast the spell. Alan explained that it wasn't a difficult spell once you were used to it. They arrived at Duke Howard's estate. Alan lifted Ellie out of the carriage and called her Your Highness. He had figured out her true identity as the Duke's daughter because the maid outfit and the ribbon didn't fit her properly. He guessed she must have hastily borrowed them from someone else. Moreover, the pure white ribbon in her hair was embroidered with gold thread. He'd only ever seen a few similar items even in the royal capital. Tina blushed and fled to her room. Graham sincerely apologized to Alan for this incident. Graham then gave Alan a tour of the Duke's mansion. The house was built to withstand harsh winter weather. At that moment, the real maid, Ellie, appeared. She seemed quite clumsy. Graham told her to carry Alan's luggage to his room and reminded her not to run indoors. Alan smiled and was glad she hadn't hurt herself. He thought her hairband looked cute and patted her head, making Ellie blush. Butler Graham saw that Alan was exactly as the professor had said, very gifted at dealing with young ladies. Alan protested that saying it that way was misleading. He just had some experience working with younger people. Afterward, Graham took Alan to meet Duke Howard. Alan thanked him for agreeing to hire him. The Duke told Alan to just call him Walter. He said he'd consulted the professor about Tina's situation, and the professor had said Alan was the only one suitable for the job. Alan promised to do his best and help Tina pass the Royal Academy entrance exam. Hearing this, Walter said the professor must have misunderstood. He explained that while he did want Alan to tutor Tina, his real task was to make Tina give up on enrolling at the Royal Academy. He explained further. Walter said Alan must know about the 4 Grand Dukes. Families granted vast lands in the 4 cardinal directions for their great service in founding the kingdom. To this day, each duke still governs their region. Their close ties with the royal family allow nobles like them to bear the honorific Highness instead of Grace. The Howard family had ruled the North on behalf of the royal family for generations and took pride in their combat prowess. But that had ended with Walter. His wife had died when Tina was little, leaving him with just his 2 daughters. His eldest, Stella, had enrolled at the Royal Academy, but he couldn't say she was talented in magic. He doubted she could ever master the family's ultimate magic. His youngest, Tina, had no ability to use magic at all. She had mana, but couldn't cast even the simplest spell. Many famous magicians had examined her, but none had an explanation. Alan had never heard of a case like that. Walter said Tina was very responsible. She believed it was her duty as heir to study swordsmanship and magic at the Royal Academy, even though there were other paths. Walter took Alan to the garden where Tina grew plants. After reading her late mother's books, Tina had begun researching how to grow them in this land. Her work was a precious asset for the duchy. Walter wanted her to stay here and continue that work. Alan said he could understand Walter's feelings, but personally thought Tina should choose her own path. He asked Walter, if she could pass the Royal Academy's magic standards and still wish to enroll, would he agree? Walter said that if she could really do that, he wouldn't object anymore. Alan thought, A girl with mana but unable to cast spells? This would be a tough problem, but one worth solving. Walter then held a small welcome party for Alan. He believed this place was livelier than the royal capital where Alan had lived, because here, people were used to eating together. Tina entered, and Walter officially introduced Alan as her new tutor. Tina and Alan then formally introduced themselves to each other again. Walter asked Alan for one more favor. Ellie was Graham's granddaughter and his only heir. Their Walker family had long served the Howards loyally. Walter wanted Alan to tutor Ellie as well, and Graham had agreed. They hoped Ellie could also enroll at the Royal Academy, but she wasn't good at magic yet and needed Alan's help. Alan didn't mind this at all and was actually looking forward to teaching Ellie. A black cat appeared. Alan explained its name was Anko, the professor's familiar, and so Tina's first lesson began. Alan teased her, saying he didn't see her wearing a maid outfit today. Before starting the lesson, she forbade him from calling her Your Highness or Milady. She also didn't want him to lie about her abilities, even if the truth hurt. Alan saw that Tina was clearly very sensitive about this. Not being able to use magic must have caused her a lot of pain. He said they wouldn't start the real lessons just yet. He wanted her to take a written test first. He guessed she knew the entrance exam had 3 parts: written test, interview, and magic practical. So they should spend most of their time on magic practice. But first, he wanted to see how prepared she was for the written part. He gave her some questions and asked her to do her best today. That night, after reading her answers, he had no doubt. Tina's intelligence rivaled Lydia's. Alan called Lydia the chain around his neck. She was the eldest daughter of Duke Leinster, who ruled the South. Famous as the Lady of the Sword, she was also a top student. She had graduated at the top of her class at both the Royal Academy and the university. Her mana was also exceptional, and she had mastered the Great Firebird spell. At least, academically, Tina was on par with her. The next morning, Alan returned the test to Tina. He said she had what it took to pass the Academy's written exam. In fact, she could even get the top score. Her answers were outstanding. From now on, Alan would cut back time spent on writing and focus on magic practice. He told Tina to cheer up. You never know what you're capable of until you try. Tina said she had tried so many times, but always failed. She'd had many tutors before him, and she'd always disappointed them. Alan understood what it felt like to disappoint others. He'd just experienced that himself not long ago. Tina was surprised that the professor had praised Alan so highly, calling him the brain of the Lady of the Sword. Alan explained that people only talked about him because he was the only one who could put up with Lydia's temper. His mana was lower than average. He figured they'd only let him into the university because they trusted he could handle Lydia. So he understood how harsh the Royal Academy could be. The classes were tough and strict, and half the students couldn't graduate on time. Before starting the lesson, he asked Tina one thing. Did she truly want to attend the Royal Academy? Not because she felt it was her duty? Tina replied that she wanted to go to the Royal Academy, not because of duty. She loved plants, but when she was little, her mother used to read her illustrated storybooks. She had always admired the grand spells the legendary characters used. She wanted to one day master those spells herself. Alan thought, those must be the great spells, but no one could cast them anymore. However, he said that if Tina kept trying, she might find a way. Ellie entered, bringing the candles Alan had asked for. She tripped again, but luckily Alan caught her, and the candles were saved. Tina, seeing how close they were, asked them to separate. Now the lesson began. Alan asked Tina to tell him the basic elements of magic. The elements were fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, light, and darkness. Each person was born with an affinity for one of these 7 elements, and their magic use depended on that. The Howard family had an affinity for water and wind, which could be combined to cast ice spells. Alan said that was only half true. So, what did affinity really mean? Yesterday, he had used a spell to adjust the temperature inside the carriage. That spell combined 3 elements: fire, water, and wind. Fire and water were opposites, which contradicted the affinity theory. It was just his own theory, but he didn't believe in innate elements. He wanted them to experiment with different elements with an open mind. He asked them to use magic on these 8 candles. Try all 7 elements and the ice spell. Ellie said she could only use a bit of fire and wind magic for now. In that case, he told Ellie to light 1 candle with fire magic. She did it and received praise from Alan. Next, he asked her to create a breeze. Though it was just a gentle breeze, the fact that she could use 2 types of magic meant her future was bright. He believed she could pass the Royal Academy entrance exam. Now it was Tina's turn. Alan could feel Tina's mana moving. Her spell formulas were precise and clear, a textbook perfect attempt, but she still failed. He knew she had mana. Now he just needed to figure out why her spells wouldn't activate. He demonstrated for them and told both girls to watch closely. He thought ordinary spells wouldn't impress them, so he added a bit of showmanship. He lit 8 candles using 8 different magic elements, leaving his students in awe. The next day, Alan began teaching his 2 students about magic. In recent years, fewer and fewer people had been able to use high-level spells. Even the power of the spells being cast had diminished. To him, the reason humans could use magic was because of invisible spirits that lent them their strength. Although it couldn't be proven, there was also no solid evidence to disprove it. What Alan wanted to convey was that magic should be used more intuitively, rather than being rigidly tied to choosing specific elements. He himself was researching and developing magic circles that would help people use magic more freely. As he was training the 2 students, he wanted them to experiment with different things. Ellie specialized in fire and wind elements, so this time he told her to try using water magic. She failed on the first attempt, but Alan encouraged her to try again. As expected, Ellie successfully activated a water spell, even if it was just a tiny droplet. Tina then gave it a try as well, but failed as always. No matter which element she switched to, the result was the same. To help her, Alan stayed up all night in the library researching. Luckily, the mansion had all the books he needed. What he was certain of was that Tina possessed magical power just like anyone else. Something was just silently preventing her from activating it. While he was reading, Tina came into the room with a maid. She usually read books at night to help her sleep, a habit very similar to her mother's. Head maid Shelley asked Tina what she thought of the new tutor. Tina said Alan was incredibly mean, but also very kind and dedicated. Shelley was pleased to hear that and told Tina to return to her room. In fact, Shelley had already noticed Alan was in the room and immediately called him out. She had a favor to ask of him. Shelley said that Tina was smart and hardworking, but all the previous tutors dismissed her just because she couldn't use magic. After being hurt so many times, all Tina could do was cry alone. Over time, that pain built up and left her fearful. But when she heard Alan, known as the brain of the Lady of Sword, would be coming, she was thrilled. That's why Shelley didn't want to see Tina hurt anymore. Both Alan and Lydia were people Tina deeply admired, and she hoped Alan could save Tina's heart. Understanding the situation, Alan reassured her. After all, he had come here to help Tina. He also had a few requests for Shelley. The next day, Tina got angry and asked Alan why he was flirting with Ellie so early in the morning. In reality, Alan was just helping Ellie with something. He wasn't flirting at all. Their lesson for the day began with Alan patting Ellie on the head so she could better feel the flow of magical energy. They also had to learn how to sense it through the body of the little cat Anko. That way they could learn how to use dark element magic. As usual, Tina managed to activate her formulae for a few seconds before it suddenly broke apart. To encourage both of his students, Alan used dark magic to create a smaller version of Anko. Since girls tend to like cute things like that, they both became enthusiastic. A little while later, Graham delivered a letter to Alan. Upon opening it, he found that Lydia was worried about him. She acknowledged that this would be a difficult mission for him. Lydia had previously met the Howard family and was aware of some of the problems they were facing. Even so, she believed that if it were Alan, he would be able to change Tina's fate. She also scolded him a little, saying that if he was out of money, he could have just come to her to teach instead of traveling all the way to the distant northern region. She told him to meet her again at the Royal Academy entrance exam and warned him not to run away because she was his master. Moreover, he had to send her at least 1 letter per week. If not, she'd burn him alive. After hearing that Alan was close to Lydia, his 2 students became curious, wondering if there was something romantic between them. Returning to their training, Ellie had begun making noticeable progress. Her new magic circle showed results, while Tina remained stuck. But Alan sensed something like ice crystals after Tina cast her spell. In the following nights, Alan buried himself in books without sleep. He felt that Tina was getting closer to being able to activate magic. About a week later, nothing had changed. One night, Ellie shyly came to invite Alan into her private room for a chat. Alan advised her not to invite men into her room late at night, saying such things should only be done with someone she intended to marry. Hearing that, Ellie said it was no problem. She liked her teacher anyway. The reason she invited him was to thank him for what he had done before. Apparently, after Alan asked Shelley and Graham to show more affection toward their granddaughter, they followed through. They hugged Ellie and said loving words to her, which made her incredibly happy. When she asked her grandparents why they were acting this way, they told her it was Alan's request. Alan explained that when people feel loved, their ability to use magic improves. He believed Ellie was very talented but hadn't been able to fully realize her potential. She needed emotional support to build confidence. Since she had lost both parents, her grandparents were her only anchor. Now that she could feel her family's love, Ellie felt truly happy. She recalled how when she first arrived at the estate, she instantly adored Lady Tina because Tina seemed so amusing. Although Tina had just lost her mother, she remained incredibly strong. After sharing this, Ellie rested her head on Alan's shoulder. Thanks to him, she had gained the confidence to keep going, and now she wanted to gather the courage to ask her grandfather to let her attend the Royal Academy alongside Tina. Alan praised Ellie, encouraging her to keep doing her best. The very next day, the results proved that Alan's efforts were bearing fruit. Ellie was able to create a small flower on a candle using magic. She had also begun to use other elements, though lightning and light still frightened her, so she didn't dare try them yet. Tina, witnessing her best friend's progress while she remained stuck, began to grow angry at her own incompetence. Alan reassured her that she still had time and encouraged her to try creating new formulae. Perhaps one would succeed. That night, Alan reported Tina's progress to Duke Howard. He explained that Tina possessed immense magical power, but he wasn't sure if she would be ready in time for the Royal Academy exam. The Duke asked Alan if he had considered advising Tina to give up. Alan replied that he still wanted to try. Even without using magic, Tina's talents could still help her pass the entrance exam. However, Duke Howard didn't like that idea. He explained that the noble society was complicated, and surely Alan knew that. A daughter of House Howard who couldn't use magic would become the laughingstock of high society. He didn't want his daughter to be hurt anymore. Therefore, he asked Alan to consider switching to a plan where Tina would be persuaded to give up. The Duke even bowed his head, which made Alan feel uncomfortable. There wasn't much time left before the exam. Tina knew that and kept trying. Alan came to her and said he would help her train more. No matter how many times he observed it, he still couldn't explain why her formulae disappeared before they even took shape, as if her internal magic power was rejecting the process. That night, Alan stayed up again, working on new formulae, and finally fell asleep after many sleepless nights. Worried he might negatively affect the two girls, he rushed to the classroom to continue helping Tina. It seemed she also hadn't slept the night before, as she was still peacefully sleeping. When she awoke, she saw a book in Alan's hand and realized he had been staying up late reading to help her. Since he didn't show up at breakfast, it was likely he had stayed up all night. The library showed signs that hundreds of books had been read in just a month. Every day, he drew new formulae for her, but she still hadn't made any progress. She felt sad that Alan had worked so hard for her. Guilt began to well up inside her. Alan told her not to worry. He genuinely enjoyed reading and improving magic formulae. Besides, that day was a rare occasion where he actually overslept. Hearing that, Tina's emotions erupted. She wanted to be scolded more for being talentless. She began to cry, but more importantly, something unexpected happened. The icy power buried deep in her blood suddenly began to awaken, causing her to lose control. Tina was sad, thinking Alan loved Ellie more than her. Every time she saw Alan praise Ellie, the darker emotions inside her surged. Immediately afterward, a massive snowstorm formed in the room. Alan stopped Ellie from entering and shouted to wake Tina before things went too far. Alan still didn't understand why Tina suddenly had a magic outburst at that moment. He was afraid she might be in danger and tried to find a solution. He told Ellie to call Graham for support. He tried to suppress the power of the snowstorm but failed. He felt as if someone was strangling him, suffocating. That proved something unknown was present. Out of options, he had no choice but to use it, even though he really didn't want to reveal his secret technique. Alan's words helped calm Tina down. Because she had lost control of her powers, Tina didn't know what had happened. Alan briefly explained the situation and asked for her help. The idea was to connect their magic to control this power. The method was difficult, but fortunately, Alan had prior experience. Upon hearing that, Tina agreed to let Alan connect his magic with hers. Gaining her consent, Alan began. Entrusting one's magic to another was like entrusting one's life. Tina chose to trust him, so he would do everything he could to save her. After sensing the location of Tina's magic, Alan tried to enter it, but it was more powerful than he imagined. Its potential was on par with Lydia, or even beyond. Suddenly, a voice echoed inside. Tina blamed herself for being useless because she couldn't use magic. These were her innermost thoughts. She had always blamed herself, wishing someone would save her. Hearing that, Alan called out to Tina and successfully connected with her. He also detected an unknown entity leaving her body, which caused the snowstorm to weaken. Seizing the chance, Alan used a technique he learned while tutoring Lydia. Although not as strong as the original, his Fire Phoenix was powerful enough to pierce through the thick ice. Tina's magic outburst ended, and both were safe. Saved, Tina cried and hugged Alan. Relieved, Alan then heard a voice saying, "At last, I've found the key. He asked Tina about the voice in the snowstorm, but she said she heard nothing. Moreover, the feeling after connecting with Tina was strange. He forgot to disconnect the magic link. Just as he was about to tell everyone the good news, Tina stopped him. She wanted to stay in Alan's arms a little longer. Hearing this, Alan comforted her. Shortly after, Ellie and Graham arrived and were happy to see Tina safe. The magic link used earlier was a forbidden technique Lydia had forbidden Alan to use with anyone but her. Alan thought he'd need an excuse for Lydia to forgive him. Exhausted of magic, he passed out. Tina worried it was because of the magic link, but Alan said he was fine. She was probably surprised that after linking, they could feel each other's emotions. She recalled how he had called her Your Highness at the time and scolded him to call her Tina. After that incident, Alan gained more experience in linking magic. If anything happened to Tina again, it would be easier to reconnect. Tina asked him who he had connected with before. He mentioned Karen, his younger sister, and Lydia. Both sides must truly trust each other to entrust their lives. Though powerful, this ability was also extremely dangerous. It must never be used recklessly, so Alan wanted it to remain a secret between just the two of them. Not even Ellie should know. That evening, Alan tried to figure out what had taken control of Tina during the magic outburst. He needed to investigate thoroughly. The next day, since Tina could now use magic, they switched to a new room for training. Tina went first. With her restraints lifted, she unleashed a giant ice pillar that pierced through the building, shocking everyone. The butler was pleased but said she needed to learn to control her power. Apparently, the entity inside Tina no longer prevented her from using magic. Moreover, due to the magic link, part of Alan's control circuit remained in her. He praised her and promised to help refine her magic control. After all these years, Tina could finally use magic. She cried with joy, not knowing how to thank her teacher. Ellie also came to celebrate with her. Alan said if they both worked hard, they could attend the Royal Academy together. He wanted to tell Tina's father, but Graham informed him that Sir Walter had been away for some time. That night, Alan wrote a letter to his professor informing him of Tina's progress. Upon receiving the letter, the professor shared the news with Alan's junior. The blonde boy was happy his senior was doing well. In the letter, Alan requested the professor to urgently send him an ice-resistant scroll for teaching, or else he might get frozen by Tina. That night, Alan kept reading various books to find clues but found nothing, only strange symbols appearing in several books. He felt as if someone wanted him to investigate this matter. The next day, Alan guided Ellie in practicing dark magic. Seeing her mistress improve, she also gave her best. With imagination, she succeeded. Tina had learned to restrain her magic but still pierced the ceiling. Alan asked her to focus more on restraint. Ellie had improved enough and would now move to real combat training. Tina was displeased, thinking Alan was too gentle with Ellie but strict with her. Alan replied that in training there was no room for whining. Furious, Tina called him mean and biased. She also wanted Alan to be gentle with her. That reminded Alan of Lydia. At that time, he hadn't received any letters from Lydia, making him quite anxious. Both girls wanted private training with Alan, putting him in a dilemma. Graham nearby called Alan a natural girl hunter. Later, Alan had Tina spar with Graham. He was impressed by Graham's movements. Tina told Alan the family butler trained daily to serve them. Ellie, under Graham's guidance, also quickly improved. Not wanting to fall behind, Tina succeeded in maintaining minimal magic output. That night, Alan talked with Graham and was praised. Not only Ellie but Lady Tina also grew beyond expectations. Alan asked about Sir Walter, as he hadn't seen him lately. It was as if Walter was avoiding him and cutting contact. Alan wondered how Walter would react when he found out his daughter could use magic. Alan also asked Graham about the symbols at the end of some documents. Graham said he didn't know. Back in his room, Alan recalled the voice inside Tina that mentioned finding the key and wondered what it meant. Right then, the two girls, unable to sleep, came to Alan's room. He scolded them for staying up late and how it would affect tomorrow's training. They made puppy eyes and, in the end, were allowed to stay. Alan continued his research. He noticed that the documents with that symbol all shared something in common. Just as he figured it out, Tina and Ellie were already asleep. Early the next morning, Sir Walter summoned Alan. Walter said he had thought carefully and wanted to cancel Tina's entry to the Royal Academy. Alan wanted to know why, as Tina was clearly improving and talented enough to rank among the top at the Academy. Walter dodged the question, expressing gratitude for Alan's help, and admitted he hadn't expected Tina to be able to use magic. Still, he refused to let his daughter attend, fearing she would endanger those around her. Alan argued Tina had already gained control. Walter insisted it wasn't Alan's business and offered to pay him generously. Alan disagreed, saying this wasn't just his concern, but also Lady Rose's, Tina's mother. Surely she had wanted her daughter to grow stronger. Walter didn't believe that, saying he couldn't possibly know his wife's thoughts. Alan said he had read all the documents here. All magic-related information had the same seal, proving Lady Rose had tried to awaken Tina's power but, unable to do so, had entrusted the task to someone else. Alan said Lady Tina had shed much blood and tears just to use magic. Would Walter now crush her dream of entering the academy? Alan begged Walter to reconsider and succeeded. However, Walter set one condition. Both girls had to pass the final test. Walter wanted to personally assess them, but as he was too busy, he would send a skilled mage to fight them. Tina and Ellie were anxious, knowing this would be real combat, but Alan assured them they would pass because they were his excellent students. Hearing this, both girls were overjoyed and whispered that they loved their teacher very much. A few days later, Alan had the two girls engage in real combat with him to improve their skills. This was absolutely necessary. Ellie, having been trained by her grandparents since she was little, was excellent in close combat. As for Tina, she stayed in the back to provide damage support since she didn't know any martial arts. The two coordinated well and successfully tied up Alan, even declaring that they would win today. Alan reminded them that it was good to be close, but they shouldn't let their guard down. Alan then began his counterattack using Tina's ice magic that was flying toward him. He evaporated it, creating a misty fog that covered the field. While the girls were still unsure of what to do, water fell on their heads. Though they lost the match, Alan praised Tina's trap and acknowledged that Ellie's combat skills were becoming sharper. However, it still wasn't enough. For the final exam, they would have to face a powerful mage chosen by Lord Walter, likely one who could even use advanced magic, making the challenge considerably harder. That's why the three of them would need to give it their all. That evening, the girls went to bathe. They worried whether they could become strong enough in time for the exam, especially Tina, who had only recently awakened her ice magic. Ellie was better off, having received direct martial arts training from her grandparents. But undoubtedly, the most amazing one was Alan. Determined not to disappoint him, the girls encouraged each other and promised to do their best to get into the Royal Academy together. Right after saying that, Ellie suddenly fainted, having been worn out from the recent training. Alan stepped in to help dry their hair, making them very happy. He used to do the same for his little sister. He took the opportunity to tell them that his sister, who was also very kind, was currently studying at the Royal Academy. If they passed the entrance exam, they would become her juniors. Tina seemed like she wanted to say something but hesitated. A few days later, they resumed practical training. The rules were simple: land a single hit to win. At the start, Ellie used her abilities to cause confusion. While she snuck behind Alan, Tina began casting ice spells toward him. Attacked from both sides, Alan was at a disadvantage, but he noticed that Tina's spells were too erratic and ineffective. However, it turned out they had planned it all along. Tina purposely missed to create dust and smoke, limiting Alan's vision, just like he had done the day before. Alan was lured into a dark circle, where Tina landed a finishing blow, securing victory. Alan was pleased. With this result, their chances of passing the final exam were much higher. When they wanted to go another round, Alan told them to conserve their strength for the important battle tomorrow. That night, while Alan was looking for books related to the ice bird that had emerged from Tina, Tina walked in. Unable to sleep, she had planned to go to the garden to wish for good luck, but was happy to run into her teacher. She confided in him about her anxiety, afraid that if she failed tomorrow, she wouldn't make it to the capital. Alan reassured her with confidence. Besides that, Tina shared something more personal. Her mother used to read her picture books, which sparked her admiration for the legendary grand magic used by heroes. First was the Tempest Kingfisher, a bird that could heal all wounds. Then the Blazing Chillin, a lion surrounded by eternal fire. And finally, the Frigid Crane, a bird that could freeze all things. Alan was a bit surprised, telling her that the Frigid Crane no longer existed. Tina still believed that grand magic was real, and entering the academy was the best way to prove it to her late mother. Alan was the first person she'd ever shared this with. Alan then brought out a book marked with a strange symbol. All of them were about ice magic. Though he didn't know her mother personally, based on the notes in the book, he believed she had deeply worried about her daughter before passing. The spell Alan had been teaching Tina was actually based on this book. Hearing this, Tina was moved to tears, knowing her mother still cared for her. To live up to her mother and Alan's expectations, she resolved to win the next day. The next morning, both girls were visibly nervous before the decisive moment. Inside the arena, Ellie's grandmother was already waiting. She reminded Alan that, as a spectator, he must not interfere in the fight. There was also a treasured item left behind by Tina's mother. In the past, Lady Rosa had entrusted the staff to her, the grandmother, to be given to Tina once she could use magic. Seeing Tina like this brought tears to the old lady's eyes. Her mission was finally fulfilled. Ellie was also advised to have confidence in herself. The two girls swore to give it everything they had learned and win. Since it was a special day, all the household servants had come to cheer the girls on. Their opponent was none other than Duke Walter himself. He wore a special mask to disguise his identity and personally evaluate his daughter. The condition was simple. They had to defeat him to be admitted into the Royal Academy. Butler Graham erected a protective barrier around the arena to shield the spectators. As soon as the match began, the opponent closed the distance but was pushed back by Ellie. In terms of close combat, Ellie was strong enough to hold off her master for a few seconds. After being thrown back, she calmly cast a spell to create a swamp under Walter's feet, which was followed by Tina's ice magic to immobilize him. Tina then launched hundreds of shots, all of which Walter blocked. She then switched tactics, unleashing a snowstorm to freeze him again. Unfortunately, that didn't work either. Luckily, Ellie pushed Tina aside in time to avoid the attack. The two split up again to confuse their opponent. However, the moment he saw dark magic, Lord Walter retreated. Tina, from behind, fired more ice spells to support, successfully allowing the darkness to engulf Walter, creating a chaotic barrier that blinded his vision. At that moment, both girls cast spells to try and finish the battle. But that still wasn't enough to defeat the head of the noble family. It was then that he got serious and activated advanced magic. The entire hall instantly turned to ice. Seeing the harsh environment, Alan grew concerned. Ellie, having lost her composure, could no longer cast spells. Tina encouraged Ellie, telling her to remember what their teacher had taught them. Alan, from the stands, also cheered them on, boosting their confidence. Two massive ice blocks were hurled down. Ellie used fire magic to weaken the enemy, while Tina created two identical ice blocks to block the attack. This surprised Alan. He hadn't taught Tina that spell. Thankfully, Tina had practiced it herself out of curiosity. The fact that she had mastered it shocked Walter. Still, he wasn't finished and decided to pressure the girls with all his strength. Lord Walter activated a type of magic that only he could use. Alan, fearing the barrier wouldn't be strong enough, ordered everyone to evacuate the area for safety. He told Graham to leave. He would act as the referee from now on. Tina still didn't realize that her opponent was her father. Though they were being overwhelmed, Ellie remained confident. She used warm wind magic to push back the cold. Proud to be Alan's student, she believed that neither she nor Tina would lose. Walter then summoned a white wolf, the noble emblem of their family. It was this creature that had elevated House Howard to greatness. Alan handed Graham an anti-ice spell scroll, which would create a military-grade barrier often used by professors. Just to be safe, Alan also wanted to create another barrier outside. The battle reached its climax. Ellie took the brunt of the wolf's first attack, being thrown back with no way to defend herself. Seeing that, Tina created an enormous ice sphere and fired it. She thought she had managed to stop the wolf, but Walter intervened to keep the battle going. He advised Tina that only by using ultimate-level magic would she stand a chance at victory. The wolf's howl immediately forced both girls to collapse. Alan quickly reminded Tina that she had previously seen the magic circle of the Blizzard Wolf. Seizing the moment, he told her to try using it. Though unsure if she could do it, Tina grasped her mother's staff and prepared herself. She needed Ellie to pour mana into the staff. They were pushed into a corner, but at the very last second, they awakened and successfully summoned an ice wolf of their own, which blocked Walter's attack. Walter was amazed, but he still wanted more. Since it was their first time casting the spell, the girls couldn't control the wolf properly. Alan started to think Tina might lose. However, Tina recalled the story her mother once told her. By wrapping the staff with a golden embroidered ribbon, she decided to pour everything she had into one final blow alongside Ellie. At that moment, Frigid Crane appeared, telling Tina to use its power. The Frigid Crane pierced through Walter's advanced magic. The combined strength of the two girls created a breathtaking spectacle in the sky. Seeing the symbol of the Frigid Crane, everyone was in awe. Walter never expected Tina to possess such immense potential. Thanks to this victory, the two girls secured their spots in the capital. Ellie's grandparents reminded her to always listen to her teacher. Despite being injured, the Duke came to see off his daughter. Tina was praised for her exceptional performance in the final exam. At that moment, he felt as though he was seeing his late wife once more. He also apologized for forbidding Tina from doing so many things. It was simply because he feared losing his precious daughter. They said their goodbyes. Walter didn't forget to warn Alan not to go beyond the bounds of a teacher, and the butler Graham said the same. Alan brought Tina and Ellie to the Royal Academy for their entrance exam, and he also stopped by to visit Lydia. A firebird attacked him. It belonged to Lydia. She was sulking because Alan had made her wait. Alan wasn't late. He arrived on time. But Lydia had come very early because she was eager to see him. He apologized to Lydia for taking a tutoring job without consulting her, and for not coming to see her between his return to the royal capital and today, and for not telling her why he failed his court sorcerer exam. Lydia said she had been very lonely lately and wanted to be compensated with a hug. She asked him to never leave without telling her again. "If you must go, take me with you." Maid Anna brought tea. She whispered to Alan, "My lady racked her brain to choose that dress for today." Alan had a souvenir gift for Lydia. He also complimented her, saying that dress looks lovely on her. "You're beautiful. I know I wrote it in one of my letters, but congratulations again on passing the court sorcerer exam. And I hear you'll be graduating from the university at the top of your class." She asked him, "Do you plan to continue tutoring?" Alan replied, "No, I wouldn't dream of it. I'm not up to the task." She continued asking what he thought about Tina. How did she become able to work magic so suddenly? Alan dodged the question because Lydia would definitely be angry if she knew he used his monolink with Tina. He guessed, they must have started on the written exam by now. Tina will place first this year, and Ellie will certainly place high. But Lydia was confident that her sister, whom she had personally trained, would take first place. Alan acknowledged that Lynn was an excellent student, but said, "She's met her match. Tina activated an advanced spell almost as soon as she learned to do magic. I only know one other genius of her caliber. We'll learn the results in a week." A week later, Walter also came to the Royal Academy and was surprised to learn that Tina placed first on the exam and was within reach of the all-time high score. Ellie passed with honors as well. They're both excellent students. Tina, you've done our house proud. Alan, you have my sincere gratitude. On that subject, would you be willing to stay on as a private tutor? Alan truly appreciated the offer, but he had to decline. Walter told Alan not to worry about the royal family. He held him blameless for the incident at his court sorcerer exam. Upon hearing that, Tina was surprised that Alan had taken the sorcerer exam. Walter said he heard Alan placed first on the written and the interview, but last on the practical. That explained why he failed. Tina and Ellie couldn't believe it. If he ended up in last place, no one alive could pass. Are the examiners such a gaggle of fools that they can't see that? Walter explained. The examiner who faced Alan in the practical was Second Prince Gerard. He taunted Alan before the exam, including insults aimed at his family and Lydia. During the exam, Alan dismantled all of the prince's spells, then trounced him in a sword fight as well. The prince protested that Alan had shown disrespect. Unable to disregard the prince, the examiners ultimately elected not to grade Alan's performance. Even so, Alan said he had no regrets. "I'm an orphan. I don't know who my birth parents were. The parents and sister I have now are of the Wolf clan, not blood relations of mine. Even so, they raised me with care and gave me their love. And Lydia spares a thought or two for me as well. I'm not so mature that I could hear them insulted and pass it off with a smile. But I don't wish to trouble the people I owe so much over this matter." Hearing that, Walter didn't pressure Alan to continue tutoring his daughter. He promised that the Howards would always be his friends and ready to help if he ever needed anything. Tina didn't like it. "She won't say goodbye to Mr. Allen. She refuses." She ran outside. Seeing her mood, the professor understood what was going on. Alan chased after her to comfort her. "You'll both be fine without me now." But Tina said, "That won't do. It just won't. Because now I know." Tina pulled Alan closer and kissed him. The professor stepped out and said, "I saw the whole thing. If Lydia were here, you'd be a dead man. Walter won't take this lying down either. Alan, you have your work cut out for you." Alan asked, "Why do you look so pleased about this?" The professor replied, "Because it will spare one of my dear students a trip home. I'm saying this for your own good. Do as Tina says and stay on as her tutor. Agree and my lips will remain sealed. As your academic advisor, I simply can't bear to see your talent wasted. Here's the contract for your rehiring. Your signature, if you please." With no other choice, Alan agreed to extend his contract and continue tutoring Tina. That evening, Ellie was happy with her cute new uniform, while Tina thought about the kiss with Alan. Tina's older sister arrived and noticed that both of them had grown up. The previous winter, she hadn't come home due to being busy with student council duties. Tina had always been very proud of her sister. She congratulated the two of them for passing the exam and was impressed that Tina placed first when she had only just learned to do magic. Tina said it was all thanks to her tutor. She had always mentioned him in her letters. Stella wanted to meet and thank him. Tina said, "He'll be at the entrance ceremony. You can meet him then." Stella could stay today. In the meantime, they had so much catching up to do. That day, Alan dressed very formally for the entrance ceremony. Lydia had threatened to incinerate him if he didn't. He lived in the working quarter, so it took courage to step out in that outfit. Ellie said he looked fabulous in it. Tina was still flustered about the kiss and couldn't interact normally with Alan. Alan congratulated them on starting the school year and said, "Those uniforms become you both wonderfully." Ellie was glad to hear that Alan would continue as their tutor, but she wondered what made him reconsider. Hearing that, Tina blushed. Now, it was nearly time. Alan told Tina not to worry. He'd be watching from the audience and wished her good luck on her speech. After Tina and Ellie went inside, Lydia's family arrived. Today, Lydia's younger sister, Lynn, also began her studies here, and Lynn's mother, Lisa, came to congratulate her. She had always thought of Alan as her own son and told him that Lydia left to be appointed a court sorceress this morning, grumbling all the while. She was sulking about how she wanted to attend the entrance ceremony too. Alan thought she really must have wanted to see Lynn's big day. But Anna didn't think that was the only reason. She brought along a camera to commit today's events to a video orb for Lady Lydia to view at her pleasure. Tina was very nervous because she was about to give a speech as the top student. It began to rain. Lynn can't stand the cold, while Tina can't stand the heat. The two didn't seem to like each other very much. Alan was surprised to see that his younger sister, Karen, was the host of today's ceremony. The Royal Academy matriculation ceremony will now commence. Karen introduced herself a bit. "I am Vice President of the Student Council. As you can see, I am of the Wolf Clan. I appreciate your understanding." The parents in the audience didn't seem pleased with the presence of beast folk at the Royal Academy. Karen asked everyone to look up. Someone's floating in the air. The gentleman who just raised a barrier against the rain was their headmaster, Lord Rod. He will address you shortly. Thank you, headmaster. We will now hear from a representative of the incoming class. Tina stepped forward, looking very tense. Tina tried to stay calm and began her speech. "I am Tina Howard, and I have the honor of addressing you all this year. To tell the truth, when I learned I would be speaking, I felt conflicted. I worried whether I had any right to address you, because as many of you no doubt already know, although I was born into the ducal house of Howard, I could not cast a single spell until my 13th year. To be frank, I had given up. I thought I had no right to dream, that I had no choice but to live out my days without extravagant hopes. Yet here I am now, I who could do no magic until 3 short months ago. I wonder if I'm dreaming, if perhaps I'll wake up in the room where I used to cry in secret. I learned magic thanks to a person I met. I'm grateful to him, so grateful that I could never thank him enough. I have always dreamed of being able to do magic, but that alone can't satisfy me now. I want to learn more spells, more and more and more, anything to reach that person, anything to repay him in some way, so that one day I can pass on the miracle I've received to someone else. I'm chasing that new dream now. I probably can't imagine how hard and steep the road ahead will be, but I can't give up. Because now I know dreams can come true. My new classmates, let us all strive together. Finally, I will catch up to you someday. I hope you're prepared. Thank you all for listening." Lisa was sure Lydia would be jealous. Next, a few words from Student Council President Stella Howard. "I am Stella Howard, President of the Student Council. Let me congratulate all our new students and their guardians on making it here. I needn't tell you that we have the highest standards of any school in the kingdom. As incoming students, you must feel proud to have qualified to learn here. But this is only the beginning. Your true journey starts this very moment. I don't mean to intimidate you, but our school is a most demanding place. Only half of you will manage to graduate in the recommended 3 years. It is a fact that challenging studies and intense training dash the hopes and dreams of many. But this is also a place that will help you grow by leaps and bounds. When I arrived here, I was closer to the bottom than the top of my class. Yes, even though I am Duke Howard's eldest daughter, but now I stand before you as president of our student council. I guarantee that if you keep moving forward, a way will open to you. Never give up and keep forging ahead. I look forward to meeting you at school with all my heart. Next, I would like to ask the headmaster to speak a few words. The headmaster is infamous for his long speeches. Be careful, lest you fall under his sleeping spell." At that moment, Anna received a message from the palace. Lydia was causing a stir in the Knights' arena, demanding justice for Alan. Her brother Richard told her to stop, but she kept her sword pointed at Prince Gerard, wanting him to pay for insulting Alan. Alan arrived and told Lydia to stop. He didn't want her to ruin such a special day. The king appeared, asking them to explain the commotion, reminding them, "Today, we appoint new court sorcerers. It is a cause for celebration. Lydia Leinster, state your reasons for this conflict." Lydia replied, "With all due respect, this isn't the place. I believe your majesty is well aware." Prince Gerard told the king, "It all began when my kind-hearted friends offered her a word of advice. You can't play the fool forever. Choose your associates with care." But instead of gratitude, she flew into a violent rage. Utterly scandalous conduct. Richard asked Gerard, Have you ever considered how your actions tarnish the royal guard's reputation? Gerard scoffed, saying Richard should save that advice for his sister, since the little fool has refused my hand in marriage time and again. He urged his father to punish Lydia. Alan asked to speak to the king and was permitted. Lady Lydia has won renown as the Lady of the Sword. She would never draw that sword without just cause. After more than 4 years at her side, I know that better than anyone. She has said she cannot state her reasons here. I beseech you to consider her intentions. Richard snapped at Alan, calling him insolent and unworthy of visiting the Leinster estate. You're a failure, unfit to join the court sorcerers. Your family is of the Wolf clan, aren't they? Perhaps their animal stink has rubbed off on Lydia. Who but a brute would resort to violence so quickly? Alan replied firmly to Gerard, I will happily accept any insults directed at me. However, I cannot stand by while you slander Her Highness and my family. You just wielded a sword of words, a keen blade capable of mortally wounding a heart. Perhaps, and this is mere speculation, Lady Lydia drew her own blade in answer to your sword of words. The king declared, That's enough. He sentenced both Gerard and Lydia to 1 month of house arrest and forbade Gerard from any contact with the two of them henceforth. Gerard was displeased but powerless to object. Alan thanked Lydia for losing her temper on his behalf, but also apologized, saying it wouldn't look good on her record. The professor and Gil appeared, revealing they had been watching and that the king only came because the professor had pulled some strings. After the opening ceremony, Tina and Ellie couldn't find Alan. Shelley told them he had gone to Lydia's residence. They decided to go there, and by chance, they saw Lydia's younger sister preparing to board a carriage home. They quickly hopped on, claiming they wanted to accompany her. Meanwhile, Alan said goodbye to Lydia, but she wanted him to stay the night. He said he had lessons to prepare but promised to call again. Lydia hugged him from behind, telling him not to look back. Stay put and listen. Remember, you can't leave me. What does it matter that I'm a duke's daughter and you're a commoner? If anyone tries to tear us apart, I'll renounce my house and go abroad with you. As punishment, come see me every day. Alan promised to come as often as he could. Tina and Ellie arrived, asking what Alan was doing there. He replied, We were talking, that's all. Lydia recalled meeting Tina at a palace ball long ago and congratulated her for ranking first. Tina thanked her, saying it was thanks to Alan's teaching. Lynn then declared, I'll beat you on the next exam. The two argued, each confident of winning next time. Lydia asked Lynn, How would you like Alan to teach you too? Lynn was thrilled. Lydia then asked Alan to teach all 3 girls at her house and said she would inform her mother. The next day, Alan went to the academy to see the headmaster, but ran into Karen instead. She already knew about Alan continuing to tutor at the Duke's house and about Lydia's incident. Worried, she urged him to be careful. Alan praised Karen's excellent hosting yesterday, making her happy. Stella entered then. She had always admired Alan and Lydia, and it seemed she fell for Alan at first sight. Back to business, Karen explained that the headmaster had sent her with a letter. He had been called away on urgent business and regretted not meeting Alan in person. The letter read, Alan, I'd like to ask a favor of you. I've strengthened campus security, but I'm a busy man. It concerns Prince Gerard. Alan thought, Prince Gerard only just gave up on Lydia, and now he set his sights on Lynn? He's supposed to be confined to his quarters. What is he planning now? The headmaster also wanted to hire Alan as a temporary teacher. With no choice, Alan agreed, asking Stella for a class list and a tour of the academy. He noticed her hair ribbon was a different color from Tina's. Both were gifts from their late mother. Both sisters were determined to bring honor to their family. Stella already knew a lot about Alan from Tina's letters. Later, Alan entered the classroom, surprising everyone. He introduced himself as their teacher from today. Some students were skeptical because he was young, especially in a class of top students, wondering if he was qualified. Tina bristled at this, but Alan told her to stay calm. He prioritized practical work over theory, as it was the easiest way to prove skill. First, let's review the grades of spells: elementary, intermediate, and advanced, based on their power and effects. The supreme spells of the 4 great ducal houses, including my own house of Leinster, are an exception, but few ever master them. Only Tina and Lynn in the class could use advanced spells. Alan asked Lynn to demonstrate. She worried it might affect her classmates, but Alan promised to shield them. Lynn showcased her family's ability to combine weapons with magic, earning Alan's praise and smirking at Tina, which irritated her. When Tina's turn came, Lynn's taunts provoked her into casting Blizzard Wolf. Even with Alan's barrier, the cold made the class shiver. Alan quickly stopped her. The girls kept arguing until Alan mediated. Next came combining spells. Alan first mixed fire and water, impressing some but prompting the arrogant ones to challenge him with combining light and dark. They thought he couldn't, but Alan easily created a starry night sky in the classroom, a spell he often used to entertain Lydia. He told them, "If you study hard, you can all do this." Another student challenged him to create magical creatures. Alan used all elements to produce lifelike birds and cute animals. Ellie wanted to try, so Alan helped her visualize her cat Anko, successfully summoning a black cat. Some students began to worry about the difficulty. Alan encouraged them, saying he once knew someone who couldn't even do elementary magic but trained harder than anyone with the sword and became a master able to cut through spells, the Lady of the Sword. The students realized Alan was the brain of the Lady of the Sword. Stella then asked if he could cast a supreme spell. He replied, "No, I likely have the lowest mana capacity of anyone here. Intermediate spells are my limit. I can construct advanced formulas but can't activate them. However, I still graduated from the Royal Academy and University. They look for more than mana capacity." "What do they look for then?" Stella asked. "In my opinion, perseverance, continuing without laziness, conceit, or caring about others' opinions. Stop telling yourselves you could never and keep challenging yourselves. That concludes our lesson." The students began to admire Alan and wanted to hear stories about Lydia. After the academy lesson, Alan went to tutor the 3 girls under Lydia's supervision. The atmosphere was tense, and Lydia threatened him immediately if he so much as touched them by accident. After class, Tina and Ellie had sweets together. Alan and Lynn arrived, and Tina asked why Lynn was with him. Lynn deliberately provoked Tina by saying, "We're on a date. What other reason could there be?" Alan explained, "I only stopped by for lunch. I'm glad to see you're such good friends, but try to keep your voices down in the cafe." Both girls loudly protested. "We are not friends." Alan suggested going to a hot spring to get to know each other better. The Ducal House of Algren operates one on the city outskirts. I hear it's secretly popular among students. The girls began imagining spending time with Alan and grew excited. However, upon arriving, Tina seemed displeased because more people had joined them. The girls hadn't expected such a crowd. Alan introduced the newcomers. "This is Gil Algren. He was a year below me at the university. I asked for Gil's advice about the hot spring trip, and that led to Lydia tagging along." Gil explained, "I couldn't not tell her. She'd kill me if she found out later." Lydia laughed and said, "And there you have it, kiddos." All 3 girls were shocked, wondering, "What do you mean, kiddos?" Anko also came along for the hot spring. But as soon as they entered, the manager apologized. "The facilities broke down just the other day. We cannot allow bathing at this time. I sincerely apologize for not informing you in advance." Tina was devastated. She had bought a swimsuit just for this occasion. How could the hot spring be closed? Lydia suggested, "We might as well take it easy in our rooms. Gil reserved the very best. Alan and he will share one." But then she threatened Gil, insisting she and Alan would room together. "We've slept together plenty of times." Alan wished she wouldn't say such things in front of his students. Tina protested, "That's indecent. I won't stand for it." Gil observed, "Alan sure is a hit with the ladies." Unexpectedly, Karen and Stella were also staying there. Karen explained, "Stella does nothing but study in the dorms. I need to get her some fresh air every now and then." Another girl, Felicia Fossey, had joined them. She was on a break from classes due to poor health. It's a real shame she can't soak in the hot spring. Tina then had an idea, using magic to fix what was broken. The manager replied, "While I sincerely appreciate the offer, the problem isn't mechanical. The spellstone we use to regulate temperature has gone missing. Duke Algren himself gifted it to us. It's the inn's treasure. We don't dare inform the Duke until we know the cause, so we blamed it on a malfunction. I beg your pardons." The girls were shocked. It was far more complicated than they thought. "It sounds as though we'll have to give up on the baths after all." But Tina refused. "We've come too far to give up now. Let's all put our heads together. Where could the spellstone have gone?" Gil noted, "The spellstone's heavy, so I've got to assume somebody took it away on purpose." Tina concluded, "The culprit must be a business rival. They want to hurt the inn by closing the baths." Lynn sighed. "Thoughtless as ever, Miss First Place." Felicia disagreed. "The Algrens run this inn to revitalize the local economy. I doubt it has business rivals or enemies. I don't think anyone did this to harm the inn." Suddenly, embarrassed at her own boldness, she fainted. Karen explained, "Felicia comes from a merchant family. She's full of facts like that. In that case, who stole the spellstone and for what purpose?" Alan said, "The thief might not have been human." Gil remembered hearing about a recent monster scare. A guest said he heard a terrible cry and the beating of great wings. They searched for danger but found nothing. Still, feathers were floating in the spring, and we were told to be cautious. Lydia speculated, a winged monster could carry off a spellstone. But why? Uncertain, Alan decided, "We'll take another look around." The spellstone should radiate mana, so we may be able to track it. Alan and Lydia would investigate while the girls stayed behind. Seeing Tina's worry, Karen reassured her. No monster will be a match for Alan and Lydia. They'll contact us with wind magic if anything happens. Tina understood why they had to wait, but felt frustrated at doing nothing. Ellie asked Karen, "Have Mr. Allen and Lady Lydia always been on such good terms?" Karen replied, "I hear they've been together since their Royal Academy entrance exams. Lydia cut through the headmaster's advanced spells during the test." Ellie admired, "Lady Lydia is as impressive as I'd heard." But Lynn added, "She wasn't always a prodigy. My sister worked 100 or even 1,000 times harder than others. At one time, she could only perform elementary magic. Meeting Alan changed everything. To her, he's hope. He's everything. They're inseparable." Meanwhile, Alan sensed traces of mana. Seeing Lydia's expression, he asked, "What's upsetting you?" Lydia pinned him against a tree and demanded, "Answer me this. Have you linked mana with anyone else? If you've bonded deeper than with me, I'll slash you, burn you, and slice up what's left." Alan assured her, "It's nothing like that." Lydia then asked why Tina hadn't been able to use magic before. Alan explained, "Something inside her prevented her spells from activating. I couldn't find the answer, so I asked the professor and headmaster for help." They soon neared the monster's lair. Alan sent a wind signal to Karen, instructing her to bring the girls. He suspected the spellstone was inside. Entering, they found it along with 3 chicks, griffin chicks. Their parents must have taken the stone to keep them warm. Wild griffins can be vicious and strong enough to wipe out a town. Stella urged, "We better retrieve the stone before the parents return." Ellie hesitated. "They look so warm and happy. It's a shame to take it, but we can't use the baths without it." Alan saw this as a perfect extracurricular lesson. "How can we get the stone without frightening the chicks?" Tina suggested, freezing the area to make them move. Lynn criticized, "Thoughtless. The colder it gets, the more they'll cling to warmth." Ellie proposed, "What if we cast darkness and took it stealthily?" Lynn admitted it was better than Tina's plan, but risky. "The chicks might call their parents." Tina snapped, "Don't just dismiss our ideas. Suggest your own." Lynn said, "Simple. Warm the area with fire magic and lure them away. They won't feel cold and we can take the stone." Karen acknowledged it was good, but pointed out, "It still means taking the stone. It gets cold here, and we can't maintain fire spells forever." The girls wondered, "Is there a spell that gives everyone a happy ending?" Karen recalled, "When we were little, Alan always said, 'Don't rely on magic for everything. Use your wits and heart. Sometimes they're stronger than spells.'" Inspired, Tina suggested making a new spellstone for the chicks. Alan agreed, "If it only needs to provide warmth temporarily, you can." He handed them a stone, and together they infused it with mana, creating a warm substitute. The chicks accepted it happily. Just then, their mother returned and attacked. Lydia slashed apart its wind strike, while Alan and Enko used light magic to calm it. Alan reassured, "It's all right. We mean no harm." Lynn worried, "Our spellstone may lose warmth soon." But Alan said not to worry. "Gil will bring a new one from the professor's stock. I suspected griffins, so I made arrangements ahead of time." Now they could enjoy the baths without worries. But once in the bath, Lynn and Tina were shocked by the others' well-developed figures. Lydia declared, "Alan's job is washing my back. Go play somewhere else, kiddo." Tina shouted angrily, "I may not match you now, but one day I'll hold my own against you." Gil then offered, "Alan, let me wash your back." He was immediately threatened by both Lydia and Tina. The girls relaxed in the hot spring, though Felicia felt faint from the heat. Lydia clung to Alan, wary of Gil. Stella smiled. "Everyone's delighted. Thanks to the girls, we can enjoy the baths." Lynn told Tina, "If not for you, I would have given up and gone home. You do make yourself useful sometimes. By the way, where's Karen?" The next morning, the manager thanked them all. The girls thanked Alan for a lovely time. Lydia clung to his arm possessively, dragging him away, though, of course, the other girls wouldn't give up so easily. In the morning, the 3 of them happened to meet at the school gate. It seemed they had become closer after yesterday's hot spring trip. Suddenly, the prince came to find Lynn and declared that he had come to make her his. At that time, Alan was in the principal's office to make notebooks for all 3 of them every week. A call came from Richard, informing Alan about Lynn being in trouble at school. The prince wanted to marry Lynn, but she flatly refused. He claimed Lynn rejected him because the Howards' cursed child had been a bad influence on her. Not only that, but he insulted Lynn as a filthy beast and her friends as wretched commoners. The 3 of them could not tolerate such humiliation, so they challenged him. Lynn said, If you wish to refuse, I shall make my request to the royal family. His Majesty and the 4 great dukes can watch us settle this at a later date. May I have your answer?" Stella was very worried, but Karen said Alan would quickly bring help. Prince Gerard's 2 friends thought he had gone a trifle too far. He had only just returned to duty. They advised him to consider his position if this went on, but he struck them down immediately. One of Gerard's eyes turned red, and he lunged at Lynn. Tina instantly froze him with ice. Stella and Karen rushed to rescue the injured. Gerard shattered Tina's ice and drew a strange red sword. He wanted to teach these empty-headed little girls to know their place. Alan arrived and said, "All right, that's quite enough. That's quite a deadly weapon you've drawn." Alan's appearance only made Gerard angrier, and he charged at him. Alan immediately shot 6 divine spells, but the sword protected Gerard. In that case, Alan tried to bind him with earth magic and told the girls to escape. Gerard slashed through Alan's earthen wall to break free. The girls refused to leave and stayed to support Alan. Together, they blasted Gerard with spells to push him back. Taking the chance, Alan summoned lightning. The 3 girls cast supreme magic simultaneously, shocking Stella. Yet Gerard still stood, increasingly possessed by the sword's power. His strength and speed grew. Just as he was about to finish Alan, Lydia appeared and kicked him away. She scolded Alan for not fighting seriously. Alan explained he needed Gerard alive to testify. He was certain that dagger in Gerard's hand had unbalanced his mind, radiating unbelievable mana. Lydia tried burning him with fire, but it was ineffective. So she and Alan decided to fight together as usual, Lydia focusing on slicing while Alan supported her. Though they managed to wound Gerard, it was not enough to bring him down. Alan realized capturing him alive would be very difficult, and suspected Gerard was immortal as long as his mana lasted. He wondered, "What is that dagger?" The headmaster suddenly appeared above and explained, "That dagger is imbued with the remnants of a lost great spell, Radiant Shield. If its wielder lacks sufficient skill, its mana will consume him and transform him into a shambling monster, as you see. The royal family guarded it as a treasure of their house, but I've been tracking it since it was stolen last night." Lydia asked how to defeat him. The headmaster said, "He's immortal while his mana lasts. It may be a remnant, but it is still a great spell. You may safely consider his mana supply inexhaustible, and he can consume mana to restore himself. In other words, under the present circumstances, there is no way." Gerard changed again, growing larger and stronger. Lydia rushed to attack, but it seemed he was only getting stronger. If Lydia got serious, Gerard would die. Yet holding back only empowered him further. She told the headmaster, "We'll figure something out, so keep him busy." The headmaster used a barrier to temporarily bind Gerard. Lydia called Tina over, recalling that she and Alan had once linked mana together. When linked with him, her magic grew stronger. Lydia instructed Tina to link mana with Alan and cast her strongest ice spell. Tina agreed and immediately linked her mana with Alan's. She felt him close, warm. Then Lydia also linked her mana with Alan, but in a different way. Tina complained, "It's unfair. I demand a do-over." Lydia replied, "If it bothers you that much, try surpassing me. Not that I'll let you." Alan told them both to stop arguing and focus on the problem at hand. The headmaster released the barrier. Tina unleashed her strongest ice spell and summoned a wolf that charged and successfully froze Gerard. Now it was Lydia's turn, her target, the dagger. Tina cast again, summoning an ice bird to support Lydia, who then activated the Leinster family's secret art, the Scarlet Sword. She slashed through Gerard's barrier and severed his arm. Stella struggled to breathe, remembering Gerard's cruel words. She'll never master supreme magic. Alan collapsed from exhaustion, worrying everyone. Later, he awoke to find Lydia beside him. She asked, "So, this is the price I pay for linking with 2 people. Did you know you'd end up like this?" Alan answered, "Yes, I knew. If I'd known it would endanger you, I'd have put that brainless prince out of his," Lydia said. Alan cut her off, saying she shouldn't think like that. "That was our best option." "I've said it before, and I'll say it again," Lydia replied. "I'm fine being your sword. Yours, Alan. I'd rather you be the nice girl who plays along with my banter and grew her hair out for me," Alan teased. Hearing that, Lydia realized Alan had read her thoughts while they were linked. But she had also read his, and knew Tina had kissed him. Furious, she asked why he hadn't dodged. Alan explained, "She caught me off guard." The 3 other girls were eavesdropping on their conversation, but Richard's sudden arrival startled them, causing them to tumble against the door. Richard came to report that Gerard was under arrest. His punishment was still undecided. Lydia's mother entered and asked after Alan's health. Alan thanked Lady Lisa for her concern. He believed he bore responsibility for attracting Gerard's enmity, and thus was unqualified to continue tutoring Lynn. Lisa then asked Lynn, "Do you want Alan to continue tutoring you?" Without hesitation, Lynn answered that she did. Lisa said, "As I've told you before, the Leinsters are on your side. Your parents trust us to look out for you, remember?" Hearing this, Alan was overjoyed and thanked Lisa. Tina, seeing such a happy family before her, felt a little sad. That night, as Alan walked in the garden, he stumbled upon Tina gazing at flowers alone. Taking the chance, she confessed her feelings. "Today, I saw clearly that I'm nowhere near good enough. I'm not fit to stand beside you the way I am now. The only person who can is Lydia. We are just following where you lead us. When something goes wrong, only one person gets to stand beside you, and that's Lydia, right? I may still be a child in your eyes, sir, but I won't stay a little girl forever. I will earn a place at your side. I swear it on my late mother, Rosa Howard, and the rod and ribbon she left me. So please, watch me do it. Please keep helping me along." Alan was shocked, but promised he would look forward to the day she fulfilled that vow. Karen met Alan privately to tell him about Stella's condition. Right after his fight with Prince Gerard, she fainted immediately. Physically, there was nothing wrong with her. But mentally, she had been quite depressed after seeing Tina and Lynn use supreme magic. Stella was earnest, and she had always worked hard, but she still hadn't reached that level. She had also been fixated on supreme magic from the beginning. Alan understood the situation and told Karen to let him know if any trouble arose. The headmaster informed Alan that Prince Gerard was suspended indefinitely and that none of them would be penalized. Alan felt this was an impartial verdict. He told the headmaster about the voice he had heard during the battle, "Annihilate the imitation." He believed it was indeed the lost great spell, Frigid Crane. Unfortunately, it seemed that only he had heard this voice, but the headmaster thought it was nothing evil. Still, what could imitation mean? Tina didn't know about this either. Alan planned to tell her once he found a way to control it. Then Stella entered and was surprised to see Alan there. She came to report to the headmaster that one of her classmates would soon return to school and asked for his approval. The headmaster recognized her as Felicia Fossey. It seemed her health had improved enough for her to return to classes. Karen and Stella would help her catch up on the lessons she missed. Stella was performing admirably as the student council president, though by rights, the post should have gone to Alan's sister. Beast folk still faced deep-rooted prejudice and discrimination, but Karen was glad to assist Lady Stella as vice president. Her Highness worked diligently, and the students trusted her. She was fully qualified to lead the council. Stella had never once felt confident in herself. The truth was, her father had opposed her enrollment in the academy. For generations, the Howards had served the kingdom with their hereditary supreme magic, but Stella had no chance of mastering it. Mana capacity was fixed at birth. She lacked mana, while her sister Tina possessed it in abundance, but could not even cast elementary spells. The Howards' magical legacy would end with this generation. Stella refused to accept that. She attended the Royal Academy and even the university. She intended to prove she had the talents befitting the future Duchess Howard. As a result, she became student council president and earned better grades than most of her peers. The little pride she gained from this had sustained her, at least until recently. Meanwhile, the girls welcomed Felicia's return. She had heard rumors that they defeated Prince Gerard with magic. Lynn explained that Tina deserved the credit as she had driven him away with a supreme spell. Hearing this, Felicia admired her greatly. Tina explained that she couldn't have done it without Mr. Allen and Lydia. Stella told Tina to accept the compliment and simply say thank you. "You learned supreme magic in no time at all. I couldn't be prouder of you. Mother must be delighted in the heavens as well." Karen was glad that Felicia seemed to get along well with the new girls. She suggested to Stella that they hold a small party in their room, but Stella was busy that day and declined. Karen worried that Stella might faint again if she overstudied, but Stella said she was fine and told Karen not to worry. Stella returned to her room, conflicted by her own thoughts. When the fighting stopped, she had collapsed from envy and despair. Tina couldn't even cast elementary spells, and yet there she was, wielding supreme magic like a master. Ellie and Lynn had held their own against Gerard too, but Stella had lost her nerve and couldn't even move a step. It was so frustrating, so pathetic. She had tried to join the fight, but she gave up when she heard Gerard's words. "I've heard all about you and how you'll never master supreme magic." At first, it was Karen. When Stella met her at the academy, her talent had made Stella feel jealous and hopeless. She still thought she only became president because Karen had stepped aside for her. She collapsed under the weight of these negative thoughts. Meanwhile, Gil greatly admired Alan because he was still tutoring while also teaching at the Royal Academy, and keeping Lydia happy, obviously. On top of that, he was even helping the Howards and Leinsters with a business venture. Alan said he was simply helping when he had free time. He had to go teach now and told Gil not to slack off at the university. Gil advised Alan to rest a little, but Alan didn't feel tired. He found it exciting to watch his students grow. Gil warned him, "People are talking about you at home and abroad after that mess. Some of the conservatives are against you. They say you'll bring disaster. Watch your back." Alan thanked him for the warning and promised to be careful. When Karen woke up, she found Stella had been studying all night without sleep. Stella believed that if she studied harder and tried more, she could become strong like Tina. Karen invited Felicia and Stella to visit the cafe with the sky blue roof, but Stella refused right away, saying she was too busy studying. Felicia noticed Stella had been acting strangely lately. She was the type to bottle things up. Maybe it was better to leave her alone for now. Tina was thrilled because Alan had called her in a special way. Alan told her it was a very important, serious matter. "Tina, you have something connected to great magic inside you. I've heard its voice 3 times now and seen it, though indistinctly. For some reason, it seems inaudible and invisible to everyone else. I believe it is one of the lost great spells, Frigid Crane." Tina was shocked, as she thought that spell only existed in comics. Alan realized it was hard to believe, but the headmaster shared his view. Fortunately, the frigid crane within her had no intent to harm. The first step was to master controlling the mana. For today's practical lesson, he told Tina and Lynn to continue practicing ways to control the force of their spells. Ellie asked Alan to teach her an advanced spell. Alan could teach her the formulae, but he didn't have enough mana to demonstrate them. However, Ellie suggested linking mana with him so that he could perform them. She wanted to help him when it truly mattered. Hearing this, Lynn also wanted to link mana with him. Alan was glad they both felt that way, but warned that mana linking was dangerous. Ellie and Lynn protested together, saying it was unfair that only Tina was allowed to link mana. The 3 girls began to argue. Lydia stepped in and said she would help. She held out her hand to link her mana with Alan. Now Alan had enough mana and demonstrated elemental camouflage using advanced magic. He manipulated multiple elements simultaneously, astonishing the girls. He asked Ellie to name any animal. She said, "A horse." Immediately, Alan created a horse out of mana. He had combined compound activation with a magical creature. Ellie thanked Alan and said she had memorized the formulae. Alan was confident she would master it in time for the end-of-term exams. Then he suggested they break for tea, as the maids had kindly prepared it. Late at night, Stella was still training, but she continued failing to use supreme magic. Felicia and Karen saw this and were very worried. When Stella returned to her room, she found cookies that Felicia and Karen had prepared for her. She thanked them and ate them. She remembered her mother once saying, "On nights when you can't sleep, watch the moon and stars like this, and don't make a sound. If you do that, the elementals will show you the way." Thinking of those words, she felt much more at ease. She resolved to keep working at it, harder than ever. The next day, the students were practicing magic. Felicia seemed tired because her health was always unstable. While standing up, she accidentally dropped her book. A nearby male student helped her pick it up, and Felicia liked him at first sight. Meanwhile, Ernest Foss, president of the Fosse Company, met Alan to present a proposal. He was also Felicia's father. He wanted to deal in all Leinster wines and Howard produce, but Alan wanted to know how he intended to handle such a large volume of goods. He told Alan not to worry because he already had a plan. However, Alan said that all the goods on this list bore ducal crests, so they could not be offered under such uncertain terms. Felicia held the business contract in her hands and let out a groan. She hugged Stella to calm herself down. Stella's large chest made Felicia feel warm. Karen and Stella were very curious about what had happened. Felicia explained that she helped with the family business. The other day, her father tried to strike a deal, but he completely failed. That negotiation meant so much for their company, so she really wanted it to succeed. But going back to school left her no time to check the paperwork, and her father swore he could handle it because he'd be dealing with a young man. Stella remarked that Felicia had such a strong sense of responsibility. Felicia admitted that she liked the work and just wished she could keep helping forever. Karen understood the issue and told Alan that Felicia was taking it harder than he might think. Then the 3 girls came in. Ellie tripped and Alan caught her with magic. Lynn gave Alan a letter from Anna, and the 3 of them were very curious about its contents. Alan said it was a report on how a business he had dealt with had performed over the past few years. Strangely, this company had taken a sharp turn for the better at a certain point, but he couldn't figure out why. He didn't see any reports of profits increasing either. It was as if someone invisible was pulling the strings. Lynn joked, "Perhaps a ghost haunts the company," which frightened Tina. Before Karen left to let Alan begin his tutoring, she warned the three girls that her brother was a master of spoiling people, but not to take advantage of him. If they leaned on him too much, they'd end up like Lydia. That day, Alan would tutor them at the Howard mansion. That evening, they had dinner together. Tina said the food was delicious. Shelley explained, "These are northern vegetables. Crop yields have improved thanks to your research." Alan noticed that the meat was also from the north. Transporting ingredients to the royal capital couldn't be easy. Storage methods, temperature, and humidity were all regulated to deliver products in peak condition. Vibration damaged some goods, so some items were better not shipped by train. Alan then asked Tina and Ellie if they had noticed anything unusual about Stella. Tina said her sister hadn't changed at all. She was still the same level-headed student council president. Ellie agreed, saying Lady Stella always worked very hard. Hearing that, Alan felt more at ease. The next morning, Felicia came to Alan to apologize for her father's conduct the other day. She bowed deeply, begging Alan to give her company another chance to negotiate a contract. Alan had read the company's reports and deduced that the one secretly helping it recover was Felicia herself. Unfortunately, as someone responsible for vetting trading partners for two ducal houses, he could not give her preferential treatment. But as a private individual, he said he would assist her in any way he could. Felicia misunderstood and thought Alan had rejected her. Karen chased after her and explained that Alan had accepted to help when he said, "As a private individual, I will assist you in any way I can. My dear brother would never turn away anyone who sought his help. Giving roundabout answers is one of his bad habits." Hearing this, Felicia returned to see Alan, asking what she needed to do. Alan advised her that she should give up on trying to have it all. She should deal more conservatively, since transporting and storing goods from both the north and south was no easy feat. Felicia understood the problem. The next day, she and her father came to Alan with a new proposal. It detailed their plans to transport and store each item. Alan reviewed their proposal and was very pleased. He gladly agreed to strike a deal, which surprised them. He explained, "At our last meeting, you asked to deal in our whole list of wines and produce. This time, you limited yourself to Leinster red wine. You've specified storage facilities and sales routes, giving us a clear picture of how you intend to do business. I can justify this plan to both ducal houses. We would be happy to sign a provisional contract." But first, Felicia asked if Alan liked any alcoholic drink not on the list. Alan didn't understand why she asked that. Felicia explained that the Howards had focused on agricultural produce, but so had the Leinsters. So if the Ducal House of Leinster was offering wine, she wondered if the Ducal House of Howard might have something to balance it. Anna entered, bringing Leinster white wine and Howard spirits. Alan told Ernest to try the wine first, and he found it excellent. Next came the other one. Ernest said, "This is good, but quite strong." Alan believed they could strike a deal for one of these in addition to the Leinster red wine. Anna provided them with the paperwork for inspection. Felicia immediately decided to take the spirits. She explained that the trade in spirits was almost non-existent. She doubted many residents of the capital had developed a taste for them, but the documents called them a northern favorite. In that case, there should be demand among people from the north. To northerners, spirits must taste like home, a taste they couldn't get in the royal capital. She wanted to bring it to them. She was sure they would be delighted. She pleaded with her father because she wanted to try. Ernest had no idea she took business so seriously. "All right, we'll take the spirits." Hearing that, Felicia was overjoyed. Alan supposed she would go on to university and asked what she planned to do after graduation. She said she would help with the family business. Hearing that, Alan made a request. "When you graduate, assuming this joint venture continues, would you consider working here? It might be nice to broaden your horizons. I'd like to see what you can create with a bigger canvas." That night, Felicia was glad the deal went through. She hoped people would like Howard spirits. Maybe their reputation would grow and they could become a popular drink. Then perhaps they could act as middlemen, expanding the trade across the continent. That sounded like so much fun. But she knew she wasn't capable enough for that. She recalled Alan's words and made a decision. The next morning, Lisa asked Alan how the vetting process had turned out. Anna told her it was a great success. Felicia entered, surprising Alan. Lisa said, "She'll be assisting us and the Howards. Walter has given his approval. Felicia will be staying with us here for the time being." Alan thought he had said after she graduated from university. Felicia had decided to quit school from this term, and her father disowned her. Her mother said it was his way of showing he cared. She thought he was telling her to forget the Fosse Company and broaden her horizons. Alan was convinced and wanted her to show him what she would do with a bigger canvas. That night, the two were surprised to learn that Felicia had quit school. Felicia explained that she liked school, but she had realized what she really wanted to do. She was going to become a merchant. The whole ordeal had made her see how much she loved doing business. It was the one thing she could hold her own at, even against them. Besides, she had discovered that she could talk to men normally if they were cutting deals. She hugged them both to say goodbye.